Hi. In this video, we're going to be talking about the very last chart in Chapter 1, and that is Chart 1-6. Your book calls this, what do they call this? Unfulfilled intentions. I think this is a clearer way to explain it. Basically, it's a way of talking about plans that did not happen. So I made a plan, but for some reason it didn't happen. Maybe I was going to send an email, but I got too busy. So I made a plan to send the email, but it didn't happen. Now, one way that we can use to show this was a plan, but it didn't happen, is to use was or were, going to, and the simple form of verb. So let me show you what I mean by that, because that doesn't sound very clear by itself. So take a look at this first example. I blank call you, but I didn't have enough time. Let's say that I want to show this was my plan. This was my plan, but I didn't have enough time. It didn't happen. So I want to show the idea. This was a plan, but for some reason it didn't happen. A way that English speakers can use to show this was a plan, it didn't happen, is to use the words was, were, going to, plus simple form. So here I might say I was, I'll use was because it's I was going to, and then plus simple form. So if I wrote that here, I would say, let's see here, let's use green. I was going to call you, so here I have was, going to, and then simple form of call is call. I was going to call you, but I didn't have enough time. When an English speaker hears that, the English speaker knows, oh, this was a plan in the past, but it didn't happen. So again, was and were going to, one of the meanings is to show this was a plan, it didn't happen. There are other meanings. I may talk a little bit about those later, okay? But let's take a look at another example. Fred and Wilma blank have a party, but their daughter got sick. So let's take a look at this. Again, let's say that this was their plan. Having a party was their plan, but it didn't happen because their daughter got sick. And again, I want to show that this was a plan, it didn't happen. And again, I can use was going to or were going to in simple form in English to show it's a plan, it didn't happen. So let's take a look at this and decide, work together, what will go in here. Fred and Wilma blank have a party. So I want to show again, this was a plan, it didn't happen. With Fred and Wilma, would I use was or were? Pause the video if you need a moment to think. Okay, because it's two people, because it's a they, I will use were. So in English, when I'm using the verb be, let's see here. When I'm using the verb be in the past, was and were, I, he, she, and it use was. Everything else uses were. So we, they, you, we, they uses were. So I'd say Fred and Wilma were going to have a party, but their daughter got sick. And again, an American hears this. They hear, we're going to, and the American knows, oh, that means this was a plan, it didn't happen. Okay? And let's say that Allison had a plan to buy milk while she was driving home, but she forgot. Okay? So this was her plan, but it didn't happen. Why don't you pause the video if you need to, or if you just think really fast, maybe you don't need to, but decide what should go in here. If I want to show this was a plan in the past, or this was a plan she made, but it didn't happen. Okay? All right. So again, I use was and were going to. One of the meanings, one of the ways I can use it is to show this is a plan that didn't happen. So I could say Allison was going to buy milk. while she was driving home, but she forgot. So it was a plan, but it didn't happen. Okay. Now, you might have noticed something. Usually, in fact, I'd say probably the, the big majority of the time, when I use was and were going to show something that didn't happen, I will add a phrase to show, to make it really clear, this didn't happen. So if I say, I was going to call you, then, but I didn't have enough time. But I didn't have enough time makes it very clear, oh, I didn't call you, okay? So I very often will add a phrase to show, oh, I want to make it very clear, this didn't happen. Fred and Wilma were going to have a party. And then I say, oh, but their daughter got sick. Again, but their daughter got sick. Makes it clear to an English speaker, oh, this didn't happen. This was the reason they didn't have the party. Allison was going to buy milk while she was driving home, but she forgot. Okay? And again, this makes it very clear to an English speaker, ah, this didn't happen. If it's already clear, if the situation is that it's already clear that it didn't happen, sometimes we will leave this off. Let me see. I'll give an example. Let's see here. Okay. So let's say a husband and a wife are going to bed. They're turning out the lights and they're about to go to sleep. And the husband suddenly goes, "Oh, I was going to email my brother." Now, he didn't say something to make it clear that it didn't happen, but because he goes like, oh, it's really clear to his wife. This was a plan. He planned to email his brother, but he didn't do it. It didn't happen. Okay? Now, I hope that part is clear. So let's repeat that again. I can use was or were, going to, in simple form of the verb. One of the meanings of that in English is, this was a plan, it didn't happen. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a warning though. It doesn't always mean that. It can be used with other meanings. So let me put a few examples on the board. I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but I did want to make it really clear. You may see this, you may see was or were going to, and it will mean this, planned but didn't happen, or it might not mean that. It might just mean, well, it might actually, well, let me give you an example, okay? Rather than try to talk about it first. Okay. Let's say that John won the lottery last Tuesday, okay? My friend John, he won the lottery last Tuesday. Now, when he woke up that morning, he didn't know that would happen, right? So he woke up last Tuesday. He had no idea that later in the day he was going to win the lottery. So I might say something like this. When John woke up last Tuesday, he didn't know that he was going to win the lottery. Okay? So here I have he was going to in simple form, but this actually happened. So the point that I want to make clear to you is was and were going to in simple form can very often mean it was a plan, it didn't happen. But sometimes it can mean something else, and it can actually be something that happened. Okay? Here it means ooh. I think that might be too long of an explanation to get into in this video. But let me give you a couple other examples. And if you were my students, I'd ask you just if you want to know more about these, talk to me at break. But I think for this particular video, I don't want to go too much into it. I don't want to make it too confusing. So let me give another example. Um, uh, when I was 10 years old, I decided that I was going to be a teacher. Okay? When I was 10 years old, I decided that I was going to be a teacher. And again, this did happen. I became a teacher. That's why I'm talking to you about this now. So the main takeaway that I want is was or were going to can very often mean this was a plan, it didn't happen. When I use was or were going to show it's a plan that didn't happen, usually I will say something that makes it really clear that it didn't happen. However, remember that it can sometimes be used in different situations with other meanings. So if you thought, oh, was going to always meant that it didn't happen, this would be a very confusing sentence because you could say, wait, I thought he was a teacher, but he says I was going to be. That was a plan that didn't happen. So it usually means that. Your book says usually, and I think they're probably right. But just be aware, you may see times where it doesn't mean plan that didn't happen. And the way you can kind of get a few ways you can tell the difference. Like I said, very often, when it means plan that didn't happen, I'll add something that makes it very clear that it didn't happen. Or you can just look at the context. You can just look at the situation, and hopefully that will help make it a little clearer. So that's not as clear as I would like, but I think it'll have to do for now. Okay, I hope this was useful.